Howdy GH15ers, Team Metal. These videos are getting some decent reviews, and I'm glad that people are watching them and taking something away from them. We'll talk a little bit about the plan for the New York Pro. As many of you know, Farrell, Zach, myself, Kay Bordner, and others are planning on making a documentary video for the site regarding what it takes to become and compete at the competitive level of the pros from a multitude of angles. It's turned out to be a much more difficult project than I originally anticipated. I knew it was going to be big in terms of effort, but I didn't know that Zach's and mine many attempts to get pros interested in the interview, even without AAS talk, would be so difficult to do. It turns out that many are just unwilling to talk at all to anybody they don't know, which is understandable, I guess, given their financial links to companies that want to keep them selling protein powders and whatnot. We all know that protein powders are not the reason that they're pros, because we took protein powders for years and nothing happened, and so it's obvious that that's not the secret. That one formulation of a protein powder that has casein and whey is better than some other egg protein, is better than some other beef protein, or whatever it might be. We just know now that you do need protein. We don't know exactly how much you need. In a lot of cases, you eat less and less of it, and you maintain or grow anyway. So it's obviously that's not the answer. But regarding the New York Pro, the current plan for me is to go to all of the local shows leading up to it and attempt to get some footage with guest posers, pros, anybody there. I've talked to a couple of pros off the record, and I might be able to get some sort of interviews like I had with Esquire, but I don't know what kind of content I'm gonna come up with. But my plan now is to go to the New York Pro, get footage of New York, the venue, the show, the physiques, any interviews I can. There will be several of us there. I'm not sure if Zach will make it, but there will be several of us there, and I'll also go to any show as far as Southern Jersey this year. So if there's basically, and possibly some in Florida, I'll be at Nationals in November. So I'm going to get footage all year, and I'm going to talk to as many people as I can, both on and off the record, and I'm going to take notes on what they say, and then I'm going to make the documentary with a narrator, and the parts that are off the record I will narrate as an off-the-record pro offered this information, XYZ, and the parts that are not, that are on the record, will be aired, if we get much at all. Hopefully we do, but that's the plan now, and the documentary will happen. I don't claim to be as good as Dave Pulcinella at making documentaries by any stretch. I think his stuff is pretty good, although obviously not necessarily focusing on what we're going to focus on. He does a very nice job of making his things interesting. They sound really good, and they're entertaining. So, and also he gets footage of some of the best bodybuilders in the world. So, that's cool. I guess I'm going to give props to Dave for kind of inspiring me to want to do this at all. So yeah, that's the New York Pro plan. Today's Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. They have a pretty difficult, lifelong job that they don't get thanked for enough, for sure. So I know you've all thanked your mothers, but thank all them mothers out there. Uh, Last 2 days I've been eating pretty terrible. You can see it in my face. But haven't gained a ton of weight. I'm probably somewhere like 8 to 10 pounds over where I was last week, which isn't bad at all for, for a week after a show. And I plan to eat clean all week, so I'll probably maintain that or lose a pound or so. And stay within 8 to 10 pounds of where I am now all year. Well, I say all year, but there's really only 3 months until I have to decide whether I want to do a fall show. So I should be just really lean the whole way and then start at 12 or 14 weeks out and just be kind of way ahead of where I usually am at that point. So by 9 weeks out, I should be like where I normally am at like 3. So hopefully that would work, and I'll, be able to not crush my schedule and, kill my home life and mess up my business for 2 weeks coming into the show. So I'll have more time to prepare. That's about it for this one. We'll make it short. 6 minutes isn't really all that short, but that's all the content for this one. And I'm going to start a video series on training very shortly, where I'm going to train for the next few weeks. I'll illustrate it, but I'm just going to go pretty light. But after that, I'm going to kick it into high gear and do about 8 weeks of training where the only exercises I do are the ones that I fucking hate. So I'm just going to basically deadlift and squat and, barbell row, barbell shrug, barbell curl, just stuff I really don't enjoy doing. I prefer the more pump style of training. Turbo, you asked about HIIT training. My philosophy on HIIT training is that it's a good way to start your training career, up to a certain point, but don't get carried away with the poundage. It's more about the intensity than it is the poundage. I trained probably the first 3 years, 4 years with a somewhat of a HIIT style, maybe a little bit more volume, but just basically really, really intense and really, really heavy. Of course, Dorian was the champion then, and, or actually by that time Ronnie was already the champion, but I had really idolized Dorian, his ethic, and so I feel like that built the foundation, and I got pretty big pretty quick. Right before I tore my pec, I was right around 215 pounds, which only this year I eclipsed. But it was a really conditioned 215 pounds, considering that I, didn't have the resources I had now. And, I was very young. I was 22 or so, 22 or 23. So I employed that type of training until I tore my pec, and then I employed that type of training on my back and legs until I tore my quad. And then after that, it was impossible. And I thought it was impossible for me to ever train again enough to compete, or well enough to compete. But that turned out to be a fallacy as well, because I learned from Cutler, from watching his videos, that, and some other guys, that they weren't training heavy at all. They were just pumping. And that's when around the time I found GH15, I figured out why they were pumping. So I think that you need to build your ability to be intense. Not necessarily your strength, although that's a byproduct, but you have to push your body beyond what you think it can do. I can't tell you what my heaviest leg press was, but when I tore my quad, I was on the leg press, and you couldn't fit another plate on it, and I was doing sets of 30. So that was pretty fucking heavy. And, people would just watch and be like, what the fuck? And now I don't think I can do a third of the weight for 30 that I could then, but my legs are just bigger. But it was the intensity that I needed to build that up to. And then after that, hopefully you can get out of that stage without injury. unlike me, and then you can build upon it to really chisel your physique. So I think that you get big from volume training and pumping, but I think that you get a base from HIIT training. That's what I believe. All right, peace out, guys. I'm going to go get some steak tips later.